it's Carolyn, and this time I'm not sharing a channeled message, but I have a friend, a guest that I'm going to offer to you as part of this video presentation. So she has a really neat service called Divine Energetic Alignment. And I want you to know about it because I think it's really important for us to understand how we can be highly impacted by energies and potential souls who have passed on as we go through our ascension and awakening journey, and potentially even more so. And we don't usually know it lots of times. But she is going to talk about her process. She's going to talk about this whole concept. I think also open up your mind to some different ways of thinking about this compared to maybe how we've been taught in the past. And so that's what we're going to share today. I have a conversation that you're going to see next, and that is what you're going to be offered today. So I hope you enjoy it. Celeste Ryan is her name, Divine Energetic Alignment. And as I always do before I get started, I just want you to know how much I appreciate you all being here. If you're new, you'll be able to get a free video of mine below in the description box where you'll be able to get 6 tips on how to create flow in your body for health and wellness, as well as receive Celeste's information below on how to contact her if you're interested in having a discussion with her or working with her further. But I would say to you, regardless, you will definitely learn something in this video. So I want to introduce to you Celeste Ryan, my friend and colleague, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hi, Celeste. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm so glad to be with you.
Thank you. I'm glad you're doing this because I think it's an important service that you provide in the entirety of the work that you do in this realm. And I think people that are awakening and going through the ascension need to know about this. So today I want to kind of give you the floor so you can talk about, and I'm going to read this so I get it right, divine energetic alignment that you do, and that has been really useful for the people that you have worked with so far. So with that, I think the best thing for you to do is just go ahead and explain what you do to service people that come to you for these kinds of situations. And I'm going to let you describe what it actually means, first of all, and then you can kind of dive into it. And of course, I'll interject here and ask some questions probably as we go along.
Okay, that sounds great. So the reason that I call it divine energetic alignment is because especially going forward for all of us who are awakening, there are times where people are overwhelmed by negative or heavy energies, and I'll discuss how that can happen here in just a moment. But I work with them on removing those negative, heavy energies, and it could be energies, it could be entities, it could be deceased loved ones or deceased spirits who attach themselves to my client. And so I help them remove that, get back into alignment with their true divine nature so that they can actually start embodying their true divine nature in their everyday current life.
Well, and something that I've been thinking about a lot too, leading up to this conversation, is what we notice during the ascension and the awakening. We're much more sensitive to energy, so we're able to notice things, and our bodies are able to realize that things are shifting. So people during this process are likely going to be more aware of these shifts and changes, and potentially they will have something like this possibly going on. Is that correct? Or how would you just talk about that?
Yeah, so yes and no. They do become more aware as they start raising their vibration and they start noticing things in their life and around them. And but also it could be that this has been happening to them for a long time and they weren't aware, but now they have become aware that something's off or something's different. Especially during the dark night of the soul, that can create some openings, right? So they might be feeling really fatigued. They might be feeling extremely overwhelmed or stressed out. Their life might be changing in huge ways, right? So let's say that there could be relationship issues. Maybe their relationship is coming to an end, and because of grief and loss and the overwhelm, it can open up their auric field.
Okay. So
That,
yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, and that is what can allow these negative or heavy or dense energies to come in and impact their life.
Okay. And a question I have, do you mind if I ask you some questions?
No, please ask me whatever.
Because I'm fascinated by this. So, and I'm just going to put this out there because some people would think, oh my God, this is scary. I'm being possessed. We hear the word exorcism. We hear all of this kind of thing that Hollywood has done to us about the devil, exorcisms, Satan, all of that, right? And attached energies or attached spirits. Because I know you and I have talked quite a bit about the perspective that we come from on all of this. So can you speak to that a little bit so people can feel more comfortable about this? Because I think they can feel more comfortable.
I agree. So I think that Hollywood has done a huge disservice to the human collective in making the idea of this be so terrifying. And I'm not negating that it can be scary to have this happen, but I think so many people don't understand that they, as a sovereign being, as a child of God, has a say-so. We all have free will. And therefore, using our free will, we can say, no, I do not allow this. I don't want this, and these energies must leave. But what happens is, because of this idea of having an entity attached to them, the fear becomes overwhelming, which then feeds the negative energies, which then becomes like this negative loop, and they get kind of stuck.
And it can feed their behavior, the individual's behavior because of this, correct? Like,
Correct.
I'm just going to throw some things out that I'm thinking of that might be like behavior that was not common for them previously, whether that, whatever that is, correct, and that doesn't serve them. And I mean, does that make sense? That's kind of how people would start to become aware of these things?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Celeste, I have a question. What could cause something like this to happen to someone?
Yeah,
It would be like searching, maybe needing your help.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. There's a couple different things that could cause a spirit to attach to a person, or maybe some negative energies and entities to attach to a person. I would say that the biggest reason or the biggest example of why this could happen is somebody who uses drugs and alcohol chronically or extensively. So not someone who's just a social drinker or a social smoker, but somebody who is really, on the verge of abusing drugs and alcohol. What happens when somebody is abusing drugs and alcohol, they cause their auric field to, what I call, become moth-eaten. So there's all these little holes in their auric field, and these energies can more easily just slip in.
And that's good, and it really kind of lowers that person's vibration to allow for that then, correct?
The drugs and alcohol lowers a person's vibration, which makes them more susceptible to having this happen.
Yep. Okay.
Absolutely. Another way that this could happen is if somebody has gone through either childhood trauma or they've had a recent traumatic event. It could even be like a car accident where the force of the car accident causes them to, for just a moment, leave their body, right? And that can allow something to slip in. Chronic illness is another way that this can happen to a person. So if they're in and out of hospitals, if they are, suffering from fatigue, they just don't feel well, they're depressed, that can also cause their auric field to become holy and allow these negative energies and spirits to attach to them. And then finally, grief and loss. Grief and loss issues can weaken somebody's auric field, especially if there's guilt involved along with the grief and loss. So those there's other ones, but I would say
Well,
that those are the
those are
primary.
good examples. Those are good examples. So I got thinking of something too while you were talking, as you were talking about, well, I kind of would like to go into a bit about the spirits themselves or the energies, because like I said previously, so much, tends to try to make people fearful, but to try to help them understand there's personality behind this and the origin and all that. I'd love for you to talk about that. Before we get there, though, I want to make one point, is oftentimes too, it's not just necessarily they're attached to a person, but they may be in someone's home, correct? Like you also work with those that are in the home that maybe somebody is inhabiting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So if you would just go through that, like the personalizing the energies and the spirits, because you have some interesting stories, but helping people understand, I guess I'll just say from where these come.
Mm-hmm. So with spirit attachment, it can, like, let's say that you have a person who has some guilt over the death of a sister. And there's a lot of guilt. Maybe there are some unresolved issues. And that sister now, because of the love and the guilt and all of those complex feelings, the sister's spirit has attached to this person and is starting to wreak havoc. Let's say that the sister was mentally unstable. And now the person whose sister is attached to them is struggling in their life. Mm-hmm. And that spirit is still the same spirit as their sister.
Right? Exactly.
So it's just their sister's personality, right? So just like any human, these spirits have personalities, the ones that they had in that life, that previous life before they passed. And let's say that it's a person who has a spirit attachment and it's a stranger. Now that spirit's personality might start to try and take over. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So whatever that personality is like, but they are just like any other human, right?
Right. They've just decided to stay here for whatever reason it is, right? To either gain, potentially they're not ready to go, I suppose.
That's correct.
Probably.
Yeah.
And then, or they have things that are unresolved as well, right?
Yeah. They might have unresolved family issues. They might have a lot of fear because of the shame and guilt over their behavior or their choices or their substance use, what have you. But they don't go to the light. They turn away. Or if they're under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the end of their life, they might be really confused and they don't even know what's happening to them.
Right. And they get, I guess, stuck.
They get stuck.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so have you found an occasion that the spirit itself, the soul, the person itself, not necessarily had anything that were issues in their life that they had previous to that, but that they just want to be with that person because they love them and they care for them? Or is it typically something where there is, I'll just say, a bit of dysfunction going on beforehand? Or do you find that it like just loved ones attaching because they want to stay? I mean, you don't really typically find that.
I don't.
Yeah.
When someone comes to me for a divine energetic alignment, it's because the spirit attached to them, be it a family member or not, is starting to wreak havoc in their life.
Okay, there we go. All right. You're right, because otherwise there wouldn't be havoc. It would probably be a joyful situation, right? Because many of us, well, myself included, we have loved ones who have passed away, like Kent, which most of my audience knows about. And it was a joyful experience that he's hanging around and talking to me, and I'm doing, interesting things in the house for that period of time. So that wasn't changing me. You know what I'm saying? So.
Well, I think the difference is that Kent went to the other side.
Yes.
And because of that, he was able to communicate with you and your vibration was high enough to reach him.
Thank you. That helps explain that, because I'm glad I brought that up, because a lot of people may be thinking, well, wait a minute, what about, my father who's with me all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So thank you for clarifying that. So I have another question. Um, and I could ask you questions all day because I think this is fascinating, like I said. So, what is the difference between a spirit or soul that attaches and an energy and all that in between?
So a spirit is a soul of a human being who's passed on. Now, there are energies and lower light entities. That's what I call them. I don't like to call them demons.
No.
I know that that's thrown about all the time and has been for, forever in the human collective. But they can get attached usually the same way as a spirit attachment can occur. So extreme drugs and alcohol,
Right.
Grief and loss, going to places where a person shouldn't be. Like, there are haunted places on this planet. And sometimes if you are there and you're under the influence, or your vibration isn't high enough to keep your auric field strong and clean, then something like that can happen. So it does happen. And just remember that as a sovereign being, as a child of God or the universe or Mother, Father, God, whatever you want to call it, you have free will, and you can say no, that you do not allow this to happen, that you will not allow this to happen. But oftentimes people aren't aware that it's happened until their life starts crumbling. And then they contact me, and then I can sense and feel what's going on.
Correct. And something you and I talked about the other day that I just want to bring up because I thought it was fascinating, because we were actually channeling information. And it's just everybody who's watching, we both channel regularly, and we tend to get into this groove where I'll get information, she'll get it, and then it just builds into this very big story. But what we got talking about that I think is interesting is that those energies, they get trapped too, lots of times when they do attach to someone.
Yes. So absolutely, spirits can get stuck, energies can get stuck. Lower light entities can get stuck as well. Sometimes, and this is just my perspective, is that the lower light energies have been stuck forever, almost, right? So for so long that they are just feeding off of the fear and the shame and the guilt and the hatred and violence on this planet.
Yep, exactly.
Right? And that they just get bigger and bigger and bigger from feeding off of all this negativity.
Right.
However, I think as the spiritual awakening is happening, and as people are raising their vibration from the 3D to the 4D to the 5D, that those lower light beings also they're impacted too.
Right.
And so from a recent session with a client, I realized something, and this is what we talked about, Carolyn, is that they too want to change something.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean that they necessarily want to go into the light, but they want to change things too. Like, they are being lifted up too.
Right.
On some level, we're all being lifted up. So,
well, and you go in with that approach when you go into these sessions, with that mindset, not that, oh, this is an evil entity we have to banish. You're assisting them as well, correct? That's
correct. I see, like, let's say that I have a client come to me and they have a spirit attached to them. And through that spirit, they have a lower light energy or entity attached to them as well. So now I have 3 clients.
Right.
Okay.
I love that. You look at them as clients too.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing though. They have free will. The spirit can say, nope, I don't want to go into the light. But most often they didn't know they were stuck. They didn't realize that it's easy to go into the light. I pull in my spirit team. I pull in the angels. I pull in their spirit team, their deceased loved ones. I do whatever I can to encourage them to go to the light and let go of the shame and guilt that might be preventing them from doing so.
Exactly.
And then with the lower light energies or entities, I just, they can't stay where they're at. They can't stay with my client,
Mm-hmm.
my physical client who's in front of me. They can't do that. Nope, they got to go somewhere.
Right.
And then we have dialogue about it. And sometimes they don't want to stay, and they don't want to go into the light. They have a choice, but they can't stay here.
Yes. So in closing, I really want people to hear about a couple examples of clients you've worked with and the experiences that you've had and how this kind of works. Can you share a couple examples?
Absolutely. So I had a lovely older couple who liked to go to thrift stores and find treasures and things like that. And they inadvertently brought something home, some kind of object, and there was a spirit of an old woman attached to it. And so this client reached out to me and said, something is going on in my house. I'm being harassed. Something keeps tugging my feet or hitting my feet or punching my pillow. And I'm hearing voices, I'm being woken up at night. I'm not sleeping very well, and it's getting worse. And this client said, even my wife is being bothered, and she never notices anything. And so I went in, and sure enough, there was this old woman attached, and she just, the way that she died, she was very ill and confused and didn't know what to do or where to go. And so I was able to help guide her, call in her family and her spirit team, spirit helpers, and they were able to take her into the light where she needed to go. So that's one example. Another example was when I had a client whose daughter was being bothered by a lower light entity in her bedroom, and it was getting worse. The child was fearful, having nightmares, not wanting to sleep in her bedroom anymore. And so I was able to actually go. Now, I don't have to physically be there, but for this one, I actually went to the house and sat in the room, and I was able to clear it.
And you make a very good, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, now the child is sleeping back in the room, no more nightmares, and everything's great.
Oh, that's exciting. And this is a point too I want to make, is that your work can be done distance, which obviously you do not have to be there in physical form with that person to work with them. You can do this via distance.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And the lovely older couple, that was long distance.
Right.
And I have done long distance. I frequently do long distance and also local.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. I think in closing, can you give them your information, how to contact you, and then what that process is for you connecting with them? And I will also leave that for all of you watching in the description box below, how you can reach her as well.
Please reach out to me via email at celesteryan@gmail.com, or check out my website at celesteryanlcsw.com.
Fantastic. Well, I don't think I have anything else unless you wanted to close with anything. This has been great. I've always thought that it was something that needed to get out to people. And for those of you watching, we got together and said, let's do a YouTube video. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Exactly. So I guess I would like to say that you can be helped if this is happening to you. It doesn't have to be scary. And I don't want to minimize anybody's scary experiences, because if you go into the fear, it can be very scary and terrifying. However, you do have power. So if you could just remember that you are a child of God and nothing can touch you without your permission. Nothing can touch you. So you do have control over this. And you have help. So if not me, there are other people out there who can help you with this. So don't give up.
If there are people that feel that they might have something going on, how would that work? They would connect with you and then you would make an assessment so that they would understand, because not everybody's going to know, oh, I have something going on.
Right, exactly. Right. So we do have to have at least one session where we're talking about all of this.
Okay. Okay.
So I can use my skills to determine what's going on, because I can tell if it's a spirit, I can tell if it's a lower light energy or entity, and we can go from there and determine.
Or if it's none of those things, because that's possible too, right?
It could be a past life that's causing these issues. So
there you go. That's good. Okay, thank you. So everybody, I hope you've enjoyed Celeste today. Reach out to her if you have any questions at all, because she'll be happy to respond to them. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, you're welcome. We'll talk later. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Celeste today, and her information is below in the description box, as I mentioned earlier. And again, thank you so much for joining me. If you're interested in knowing more about my services, I'm at purplerainhealing.com, where I'm a spiritual awakening mentor, a distance energy healer, and a channel. And I would love to work with you as you travel through your awakening and ascension journey. Thank you again for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video.